Welcome everyone on our second day of our careers conference. Today, we have a session hosted by Mark, who is our head of membership, and Georgie, who is our membership manager. And we'll be looking at your strategy for the year ahead and how you can build your school's alumni network. Um, a little bit of housekeeping before we start. Feel free to post questions either in the chat or if you look at the bottom of your screen, you've got a Q&A function. This is a webinar. It is set up as a webinar, so it is normal that you can't see yourself, but you can hopefully see our panelists. Yes, I am going to let Mark lead the charge.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Sarah Jane. Yeah, just to very quickly introduce myself, I am Mark. I'm the head of membership for Future First. I see some names in the attendees that I recognise, so you may have met me before or worked with us on lots of various stuff over the course of the year. And this is Georgie. Do you want to quickly introduce yourself, Georgie?
Yeah, hi everyone. Like Sarah Jane said, my name's Georgie, the school's membership manager. Again, might have met some of you before. And yeah, looking forward to going through the session today.
Excellent. And as was mentioned at the start by Sarah Jane, if you do have any questions, do drop them in the chat, drop them in the Q&A. We'll keep an eye on it and we'll try to answer it as we go along. There is no need to wait for the end. Just please fire away and ask any questions you've got. If we don't get around to answering any, I'll make sure that we send that I'll send you an email afterwards and let you know the answer to that question if I know the answer, or I'll ask George to do it if I don't. Probably work fine. So as Sarah mentioned, we're going to run through today. We're calling it your best year yet. So it's all about building your alumni strategy for your school. So hopefully lots of you will have thought about alumni, and I recognise some of the names, as I say, in the participants. I think the bulk of you are Future First members, but I'm not sure all of you are. So as I say, we'll run through some stuff that's specific for the hub and how you can get the most out of it, but also some general advice about building a strategic plan as to how to get the most out of your alumni. Just before we do that, though, I will just very quickly touch on who are Future First. So for those of you who don't know who we are, well done for attending the webinar. You might just know it's about alumni and have no idea who we are. We are the UK's alumni charity. We specialise in working with state schools and supporting them to build alumni networks and get relatable role models into their schools. So lots of people in this call, as I say, are members of Future First and already a part of our network. If you're not, please do go onto our website, have a look afterwards, reach out to us, send us an email, and we'll get in touch and let you know how you can become a member. But effectively, we truly believe and advocate for this idea that relatable role models in schools are super important. And having somebody in school giving a talk about where they are now, who literally sat in that seat, who perhaps got attention from you in the past as a teacher or another teacher in the room, or has actually lived that experience of those young people, lived on the same estate, grew up on the same road, taken the same bus to school, is absolutely the key to a really strong role model for young people. And hopefully it'll be a real great attribute to you guys to support your careers program going forward. We know that there's lots of things going on in careers at the moment, I think would be a polite way of putting it. And alumni is one of those things that we know is coming up more and more, and it's now part of the statutory guidance, which we'll talk about in a minute. But I just wanted to make sure that you knew who we were and what we did, just to give you an idea of how we do what we do and how big we are. These are some top level stats for Future First. So we've built over 1,250 networks. We've connected almost 500,000 young people. We have almost 250,000 young people on our hub registered. And we have, that number says 11,000, but I'm going to look at Georgia now and check. But I think that number's over 15,000 now, or certainly very close.
Yeah, I had 14,000 in my mind, so it's definitely around that mark.
We'll go for 14,000 plus.
Yeah.
That covers us. But it's a moving number, and we are getting more and more people joining that national network. Just a reminder for those of you who are members, you can get to that national network through our hub. And all those people there have said they're happy to support schools in their local area. So please don't be shy. Please reach out to them. Please ask them for support if you need, and especially if you need a specific type of volunteer that perhaps you don't have. Whilst that gold standard of alumni is important, actually getting somebody in who might have grown up a few streets away or in the town next door is also still really valuable. If you are a member and you are thinking to yourself, I have no idea how I do that, then please reach out to your coordinator and we'll happily book a quick call and show you how to do that so you can make the most of that asset. So today, these are the bits and bobs we're going to cover on the way through today. We're going to talk about why alumni matter, but more importantly, why they matter to you. We're going to have a little, there's a short video I'm going to show you about one of our schools as a case study, just so you can see how they're working with their alumni. We're going to talk about sort of getting a read as to where you are with your alumni, what's currently going on, thinking about making those strategic plans, and then making those goals a reality. And at the end, as we get towards the end of the session, I'm going to talk to you about your strategic careers plan. I know lots of you will have made strategic careers plans with the CEC's tools, and how we can get alumni into those, but also about how you can get wider buy-in from your SLT and your school as a whole. So hopefully there's no surprises there. I hope that's roughly what everybody's expecting from today's session. And as I say, we'll make our way through it and see where we get to. So let's start with that very first question of why alumni matter. So I'm going to leave up on the screen, I'm sure you can all see it. This is a snip from the statutory guidance around careers guidance, and particularly in the part that pertains to benchmark 3 for the Gatsby benchmark. So this is in that guidance I'm sure you've all seen, scanned through 100 times to find different bits. This is the sort of really detailed bit about the expectation on alumni. I think aside from our statutory requirements to use alumni, I think there's lots of really good reasons why we should be using alumni. Myself and Georgie are very fortunate. We get to go to lots of different schools and get involved in lots of different sessions and deliver lots of different things. And I know from personal experience the difference that really high quality alumni make, and how much they are able to support young people. And I think of, really specific conversations I've overheard about people asking really daft things about, how much does a season ticket train, or how do you get the train every day? How much does it cost to get into town to do your job? And these are really small things that it's really important young people get a chance to understand. And they're questions that if their parents worked in London and they lived in Bedford, they'd be able to ask their mum and dad how much those things cost and how they factor in that pricing. But if they don't, this is a great way for them to get that tough chance to ask those questions. And for me, I know from my personal experience, when I was at school, we had people come in and talk at assemblies. And I remember a couple of them specifically about people who were doing amazing things, and working in, I think, tech, and one of them was working in insurance, and it was really great. But they weren't from where I was from. I grew up in Birmingham. These were young people. These were people who had grown up in, Greater London and ended up working in Central London. Whilst it's great, it wasn't really relatable to me as a young person in the area that I grew up in. They certainly didn't sound like me. They certainly didn't have the experiences I had. They didn't know, what part of the world I'm from and what the challenges are for travel and all of the other things that make a real big difference. But that's why alumni matters, and that's why it matters to me. I want to invite you all, you don't need to unmute, you don't need to type it in the chat, but just to take a second to think about why alumni matter to you, but particularly to your school and to your students. So there's these big reasons around legislation and perhaps your personal experiences, and there's also lots of small things that your alumni might be able to help you with. So there's a few examples here of, there are a lot of schools out there that we work with that feel like their alumni really add a resource for their careers team to use and really help their careers team in terms of giving them lots of time. As I say, we mentioned about role models, but if your school is particularly deprived or in a particular area, or it's one of those areas perhaps of a pocket of poverty within a richer area, or whatever the really specific challenges are that your young people face, can your alumni help more there? Maybe there's large employers in your area that you want specific insights into those employers. Well, if there is a large employer in your area, the chances are some of your alumni work there, and they'd be able to give you that. Maybe you need support for governors. Maybe you need support with students who are going to Oxbridge. Sorry, a very loud van just drove past. Maybe you need support for students who are going to Oxbridge. Maybe you need support in a totally different way. Maybe you need support with students who want to work in performing arts or sports. But really do have a think about why they might matter specifically to you and your students and how they'd be able to help. And I know for lots of schools that's really different, but it's definitely worth taking a couple of minutes to reflect on it, either in this call or after this call, just to think about your specific school and your specific needs. I'm going to show you a short video of one of our schools now. So it's a case study video of a gentleman called Andy who works at St Bonaventures, a school that we work with. And he's going to tell you a little bit about how he works with his alumni and why it works great for them. Hopefully this video works. I'm going to look at Georgie to give me a thumbs up if you can hear the audio, Georgie.
My name's Andy Lewis. I'm a deputy head teacher at St Bonaventure's School in Forest Gate, which is in the London Borough of Newham in East London. I'm the pastoral deputy, but one of my other responsibilities is working with our alumni and former students. One of the things that we recognised as a school is that our alumni always felt still connected to the school, and we realised we didn't really have a formal way for them to be in a network, for them being connected back to their old school. And so we were looking at different ways in which we could start up and then build that network. And when we found Future First, we realised that actually that was exactly what they did, and already had the existing platforms and software and tools to make the whole process very easy in getting it off the ground and then continuing to build that network, communicating with that network, but also allowing opportunities for those alumni to come back into school and to give back through careers days, workshops, and lots of other different things that we can offer through the partnership with Future First. For me, it's giving the students an opportunity to see people like them. I think it can be very easy to have careers talks, to have visiting speakers, but when they've actually sat in the same seats and walked the same corridors, and I think particularly for us as a school in East London, people that have been through the same challenges and experiences that the young people today are going through, I think it's really important as well for them to see a very wide range of different successes.
I'm really happy to have been able to see people who walked through the same corridors I did, done the same subjects as me with the same teachers, because that really allowed me to see how coming to this school allows you to grow and what you can become once you leave. The verse that really stuck with me, and also about, I always used to think that the only way that you were able to get a good job was go to sixth form, go to university. But some of the things that I've heard from our alumni taught me that that's not always the case, and there's a lot more that you can do to get where you want to be, like apprenticeships and degree apprenticeships.
That one thing I learned is success isn't always going to be a straight line. Many of the alumni talked about how they went through unexpected changes industries, and that they found purpose within trial and error.
I'd also say that it's okay not to have a plan for now, because you will eventually get there. I learned that hard work really does get you to where you need to go in life. It doesn't have to necessarily be a public university, but like if you put effort in, you can get there.
Something I really took on was that even if you have a specific roadmap in life, there will be changes, and that's perfectly normal, and you'll just adjust to them, and that everything happens for a reason.
I thought I wanted to be an engineer when I'm older, and some of the alumni also followed that same career path. So being able to see how people who had the same aspirations as me became successful was quite happy.
The highlight of the day was that we actually got to speak to people that came from like the same background that we came from. I feel like that was quite eye-opening.
I think for me, as someone that is not quite sure where I want to go yet, hearing that like it's important to have failure sometimes that guides you in the path they want to go, this might be fun.
I think it was important seeing different people taking different career paths. Like some people went to uni, some people took apprenticeships, and some people went straight into business.
I remember all the alumni just giving us advice on like what you want to do, saying like whatever you want to do, you should take like the best route. You should do your research on what you want to do, and have a plan ready for what you want to do in the future. They made it easier for me to like see what path I want to go down. So like, because what I want to do is marketing. After they said that I should do a green apprenticeship instead of uni, because green apprenticeship is like way more sufficient than what I want to do.
I think they love the idea that, you know, the people that are speaking to them were exactly where they were, sometimes even with some of the same teachers, you know, and that kind of is a really good way in for those alumni, because they can talk about, oh, when I was in such and such his class, and oh, is he still teaching, is she still teaching? And I think it's a really good way in, and I think it also makes them sound like real people, as opposed to that kind of detachment. Engagement with alumni is something we've always done anyway, certainly within our careers, and it almost seems like the Gatsby benchmarks have caught up with what we already had as good practice. You know, and I think that did come from our work with Future First as well. So, you know, with the changes, we're kind of already there, which is really good. And I just think schools that are not engaging their alumni in this way are missing a trick, really. You know, it's something more personal, it's something more meaningful. You know, you can always write to a company and they can send someone random to come speak to your students, but actually when there's that real connection, that real kind of sense of community family that kind of comes with it, I think, as I said, for the current students, it just makes it a far more profound experience for them.
Oh, don't know why that's starting again. Apologies. Just before we move past that, and I'll put the next slide up, but it's worth mentioning as well that whilst a lot of our members are on the call, that St Bonaventures do a lot of other work with us as well and take part in lots of our employer events. Georgie, I know you've run a lot of those this year with them. Do you have some examples of the sort of stuff they've done?
Yeah, St Bon's have done loads this year actually. So I guess firstly an example of an alumni event they did. So they had back, I think it was 12 of their alumni towards the end of April for a massive careers carousel with their year 10s, which was a really incredible day, and they got a lot of great feedback from the students, which was really great. And yeah, they've been really involved with our employer work. So actually today they've been at an Insight Day. I've not heard the feedback, but I'm hoping they had a really great day and it went really well. So they've been at an employer event in central London today with some of their students. And I think they're also doing one more before the end of term. So yeah, really, really engaged with their alumni engagement, but also super engaged with our employer work as well. So yeah, it's been really great to work with them.
Amazing. Do you know who are they with today, Georgie?
They're with BlackRock today.
Oh, nice. Put you on the spot. Well done. But I think it's worth mentioning, because I know there's a lot of members on the call, and I think it's really worth highlighting the fact that whilst we're here to support your alumni and support you building those alumni networks, we do also have those employer opportunities available. And I know that a lot of people on this call will be thinking a lot at the moment about their work experience and this requirement that by the end of the parliamentary term, this modern work experience will become, part of what's required from schools. I don't think well, I'm fairly certain, I've been told a lot, it's not immediate, but it's certainly a parliamentary term thing. And, we are able to offer some of that additional support as well. But also there are schools out there who will generate their own employer opportunities through their alumni network. So it can be, again, another great reason to invest that time up front in your alumni network, and hopefully make the most out of it in the long run. So back on track, I suppose, with our conversation today, which is around that strategic planning and making sure you get the most out of the year ahead. One of the really important elements of this is to think about where you currently are as a school. Now, I know a lot of you are members here, and I think there's a few of these that we will tick off that list quite comfortably for our member schools. But even if you are a member, there may also be some of these that you need to think about and give some consideration to. Now, we have an in-depth tool that we can share, and I will make sure that our team have. And if you are a member, email your coordinator, and they'll come back to you with the documents to be able to do this. But here is a really quick list of things that I think we all need to think about in terms of our schools and where we are in that alumni journey. Everything from storing data in a compliant way, which obviously if you're part of our network, you'll do through our hub. But it doesn't mean that there's not a rogue head of science out there in your school who has their own list of alumni somewhere else, on a pen drive that they're wandering around with. But also thinking about how often your volunteers are actually coming into schools and doing that volunteering work, and those alumni are coming in. And you can think about that as student-facing events. And I'm guessing there's going to be lots of people out there who have alumni supporting in other ways as well. Perhaps they're some pro bono work, perhaps they're helping with some administration, perhaps they're supporting a whole different way of the schoolwork, maybe they're a governor. But start really thinking about how often they come in, because I think one of the things we find is that it's great to maintain that network, but if you're not using them, not only will you not feel the benefit, but actually that network will become unengaged and won't see the point in logging in and being part of that and trying to get involved. Do you know what your alumni are currently doing? So we know that answer for lots of you who are members. But if you're not, it's a really important thing to think about. It's great having that list, but knowing who to reach out to. Do you have a clear school-wide comms plan for your alumni? Is there one person that's in charge of that? Where are you at with that? When was the last time you emailed? We would always say to schools, think about emailing once a term. Georgie, seems about right. As a target to aim for. But if you're emailing and 6 other people in the school are emailing, and everyone's emailing every week, they're not going to have the impact that you want them to. Think about your alumni calendar. Again, we have a resource that can help here with the members if you're interested. But just think now, at this time of year, about what you can do. But also, is that already in? Do you have other staff outside of the careers team helping with this and supporting you getting alumni in schools? We know that one of those Gatsby benchmark changes is that schools and that the careers is across the curriculum and not just the responsibility of the careers lead. That's also true for alumni. And there are schools out there where they have lots of different people involved in recruiting alumni to lots of different events, and careers leads who don't even know that their colleagues have set up an event on the platform, recruited a volunteer and gone ahead and run that event, which is great. But also then think about whether your network is growing and engaged, or is your network becoming a bit static? Is it the same, 10 people on a list that it was, or is that a moving feast? These things will give you an idea as to where you're at in your alumni journey as a school. The bar here, there's no one here saying that you have to have all of these things nailed perfectly. If you get a volunteer in school once a year, that is great. That's a really great use of alumni. But if you can get 10, if you can get 15, if you can get them across the network, across the curriculum, why wouldn't you? But it's worth reflecting on this in order to be able to think about your strategic plan. So let's talk about strategic plans. Once you have done that review exercise and thought about your strengths and weaknesses, we would recommend thinking about 3 to 5 strategic goals around alumni. Again, we have a tool that can really support you in this, but they could be long-term goals, they can be short-term goals, they can be anything that works for your school, really. Our statement and our sort of advice here is be bold and dream big and be ambitious. We're not expecting you to achieve those things tomorrow. What this is, it's about thinking about how you get the most out of your alumni. So it might be getting an alumni on your board, on your governors. It might be about getting more alumni into schools. It might be about having a regular alumni event or a yearly calendar of events. But whatever it is, really think about what those are for your school and how you're going to attach them and how you're going to attack that problem. And it can be quite a broad thing to think about. And I'm sure lots of you, as I say, have done your strategic careers plan and thought a lot about this. So hopefully applying that same logic just around alumni specifically can be a really important way to think about this. But as I say, aim big. There are lots of schools doing some really fantastic things out there, and your alumni network will really start to pay off for your school when you start to hit those bigger picture things. When you have lots of events coming in, all of a sudden that alumni network is a real bonus to you and not a burden of another piece of work that you've got to do, another piece of statutory guidance you've got to tick off the list. So the how do you do this? And I think obviously it really depends on what your plan is. There's a few ideas here, but I think that there's lots of bits and pieces that we can help you with. And I think there's lots of things that Future First have. And if you come to us and say, this is what we want to do, this is our aim, this is where we want to be, and we can certainly help you with this thinking. There are some really obvious things here. I think the one that I would always encourage schools to do is to think about those events. What's in the calendar? What's coming up? The best way to keep your network engaged, busy and growing is to use that network. If people sign up to volunteer as alumni and they don't get an email or an opportunity that suits them for 2 or 3 years, they're very quickly going to disappear from that list. So actually making sure there's lots of varied volunteering for your alumni. And that might be face-to-face stuff and role model stuff, but it could be all sorts of other things as well. Really do think outside the box and think of different ways in which people can get involved. We would always suggest having that calendar at this time of year, thinking about that calendar, thinking about how you grow your network. We have lots of helpful tips and hints and advice on that, but a really important one is to use your network to grow your network. Use them to spread the word. Also, putting together a really clear comms plan. It's really great if you do all the other work, but if you don't think about how you communicate that to those alumni and those volunteers, it's really difficult. As I say, we would always suggest once a term. Next term, these are the events. Let me know if you're interested. If you're on the hub, we can help you to link all that through to the hub so that you're not inundated with emails, that actually you can just log into the hub and see your attendees and manage them through that process too. But hopefully it's a really clear way for you to start thinking about it. And really importantly, you need to get colleagues on board. You need to make this not just you in the school talking about alumni. because that's really hard for you to be able to convince all of the staff, all of the students, and all of your alumni that it matters. It's a really mammoth task. So let's talk about how you get school-wide buy-in. How do you get those other teachers and school staff to work with you and to be on your side? And I think really key in this is, first of all, start with the low-hanging fruit and find your allies. There will be other teachers out there who have, by trial and error, by watching other people from different schools they've worked at, who will be passionate about this too and will see this value straight away on day one, the minute you mention it to them. You need to identify those people. Those are really going to be important people for you guys to build your networks and to get those volunteers and those alumni in front of students. Make it a team sport. Don't make it all about you and everything having to go through you. Actually, if you can find those allies, you can make it a team sport. You can give them a responsibility to do part of the work. Maybe they take on one of the comms once a year. Maybe they take on one of the broad events. Maybe they manage parts of the hub. Maybe you ask for us to upgrade them to be admin in the hub so they can do some of those tasks for you. Whatever it is, it's about more than just one person trying to make the difference. Making it simple. One of the things that we know will put off those teachers and those other staff members from getting involved is if we overcomplicate things. So we can help again with this if it's through the hub and through other things, but try to make the ask really simple of what you're asking them. Play the long game. There is no short win here. There is no answer that I can give you that will, on September the 1st, give you a really bought-in school-wide approach. It just doesn't work like that. But being consistent and being persistent are really, really important. Show people what they're missing. Again, if you remember, we can help with this, but when we're there running an event with your alumni, when you run an event with your alumni, make sure everybody in school knows, shout about it. You know, if you've got a staff briefing, mention it that morning, let people know it's there, invite them to come and say hello to the alumni, they might know them. Invite them to come and see what the event looks like in reality, or talk to the young people who are in the room at the end. Sometimes showing people is easier than telling them. And especially whilst we're there supporting you in your delivery, if we're in the school doing a workshop, please don't be hesitant to ask us to come and join you in the staff room or talk to your colleague about it or explain to Mr. So-and-so how that part of the hub works. We're always happy to do those things. And finally is getting your senior leaders involved at the school. They're obviously really important in influencing the school and the other staff. So it's really important that you do that too. And here's some tips as to how you could get your SLT involved as well. So obviously it's really important to make sure that they know exactly what is actually required of the school. Quite often for a senior leader, that's a really good starting point, is to make clear that actually Gatsby Benchmark 3 requires you to do this. The statutory guidance requires this to be done. It has to happen. Some of you out there will have careers governors or governors who work specifically with you guys supporting your careers. If you do, they're obviously great allies and great advocates and people to go to. Talk to them about the benefits. Why alumni help? What's the benefit here? And we can help you with that. We've got lots of information on that, from soft benefits to the more detailed and number-driven ones. But hopefully, it should be a relatively easy sell on benefits. Make sure that any events are front and centre. I've already mentioned that one. And get student feedback when you are running events with your alumni. Ask your students how it went and make sure that you shout loud and proud about those successes. And let people know. If you're there, sat there thinking, oh, that all sounds great, Mark, but I don't have time to go away and write up the bits of the Gatsby benchmarks that talk about alumni. Of course you don't. Just go to our website. It's all there. You'll very quickly be able to find in our news section, in our blogs, there's all this information about what those Gatsby benchmarks mean for alumni. Again, we can share more stuff. We have short presentations we can share with you, all sorts of things that can help. But as I say, yesterday or the day before, I went to a conference and I met a careers governor. And he was really key in getting that school the help that they needed. Very lastly from me, because I realise I'm about to run out of time, is practical next steps. So my ask as a result of this is just to have a think about your practical next steps when it comes to your alumni. So there's some suggestions here of what you can do. If you're a bit further along, think about having a look at that action plan document that we can share with you if you message us, and writing those strategic guides. And if you've created a strategic careers plan, perhaps review whether it does contain alumni and whether it should contain alumni. And again, if you're halfway through that document and you don't know what to do and you don't know where to go, call us, we can help. And that is me done. I don't know, Sarah Jane, do you wrap this up now?
Yeah. Thank you so much, Mark and Georgie. We've got another session starting in 14 minutes, which is on how you can make it fun for everyone and how you can work with your alumni and engage them, which I think is being led by Georgie. So I look forward to seeing you in 15 minutes. And thank you for joining us today.
Thanks,
Bye.
everyone.